Hey, hi. So we have already saw the user contract where we have wrote our user contract and different function to register all the different NGOs, donors, banks, and we have wrote the function to get all these banks and all donors and NGOs, but based on different hierarchy level, right? So this is admin operation. So only my government user can call from org2, and let's say we have already defined that, right? Similarly, now we're gonna write, and let's remember to export this function as well. Maybe in last video I forgot to add this line like export default user contract. So please remember to add that, right? And most important thing, so please check the description box for the repository link. There is a repository link as well, okay, in each video. So please check the description for repository. GitHub repository is there. So you'll get the basic template. There is not a smart contract. That's why I'm explaining things in a detail. So you can write the smart contract or in the repository. Okay, it's a template. Now let's move towards our token contract where we are defining tokens. But before that, let's move to the funds one where we are creating fund as an NGO. So who will create a fund? So it's obvious, NGO. Now we have onboarded NGOs in my system, bank in my system, whole ecosystem, and donors. So now I want to first NGO will create a funds. First NGO will create a fund, and that funds will get visible to donor, and then donor will donate against that funds. Right? That this is how my flow looks like. So first we need to create the funds. So now let's try to create my fund smart contract. So we'll give fund smart contract over here. We'll give the name. So simply what we will do from previous video, we have here utils function as well. So if you go on top, not so. So what I'm trying to say, we have to import the my fabric contract API and then this util. So if you grab this thing and we can put it over here. Okay, similar structure we required, and then we have to define the smart contract over here. So we'll define here class is my token contract extends contract, and then we have to pass it as super constructor in super, and then we have to close the contract. So no, don't this is recommending me, so I'll just close this class. Okay, and then we have to do export here, export default token contract. Yes. So this is my basic structure of smart contract. Now I have defined the token contract. Cool. And I think I have already shown this index.js as well, where we are defining the token smart contract here. So we have already defined this. So we have to use the same naming convention for inside it. So whatever we are exporting, it will get catch in my index.js. Now let's try to go little deeper and define our functions one by one. So for function purpose, you can always refer this README file. Okay. Inside README file, we have defined which smart contract will have which functions. Now, if we talk about fund smart contract, so you can see here we have create fund, donate, add expense, get fund, close fund, get all funds by NGO, get all funds, and get all donation by donors. Okay. So we're going to add these functions one by one. Let's go to the smart contract. Maybe in the repository, this readme is updated or not. I'll check and I'll update if it's not there. Then now let's try to create our function one by one. So my first function is to create fund. Okay. So create function is again a write operation here, right? We are giving a write operation here. We can get here a create fund. So create fund could be similar function equivalent to my onboard donor or register bank, something like that. It is more equivalent, right? So very first thing we'll check the parameters, whatever we need: fund ID, organization, NGO ID, title, purpose for what you are creating. This is like some description. And fund target, what is the your expected target you want to reach, the fund amount target. So who can create the funds? Now we have NGO users who like NGO user is nothing but the NGO owner or NGO's fund manager sort of thing. So which is onboarded through my government NGO admin, and then it is over here. So those users can only create the a fund. So if bank is trying to create fund, it is declined. If directly admin is also trying to create the fund, admin in the sense my government admin or directly NGO admin, it is declined. Only and only the user who is the NGO authorized person, they only can create the fund. So now if that ID is already existing, we are just saying that this is existing, this already exists, please create a new one. And then this is the object, that's what we're gonna create. Now let's try to understand this object little bit in a closer look. This is very important. I'm trying to explain you, I'll try to explain what exactly happening here. Here we have fund ID, here we have NGO ID, title and purpose, fund target. This is pretty straightforward, that whatever the parameters we are getting, we are adding over here. Now here we have total tokens. So the purpose of adding total tokens is how many tokens got generated for this fund. Okay. When we say token, I'll explain you in token smart contract as well. But let's try to remember, here we are trying to map my actual money received in my fund with respect to token. That's why we have the token concept. Whenever donor is donating some amount in money, that amount we are treating is equivalent to my token. It could be, let's say, if someone has donated 5,000 rupees, so we can treat that 5,000 rupees is equivalent to my 5,000 tokens. Okay, so 5,000 token, this token is issued by the bank, and then that if this 5,000 token will get allocated to this particular fund manager or this particular fund, right? So when fund manager will go to bank, they can show this record, I have already 5,000 token against this my fund, I need 5,000 rupees against that 5,000 token. That's how I defined it. You may ask this question, hey sir, why we are doing this much little complicated over here? So reason is pretty simple. Or here's like, I'm talking about private blockchain and I want to put some real use case where we can talk about how my real bank can fit in the current situation and they can give me the money. So that's why we have a real banking or the money manager or sort of thing or regulatory thing that we call as bank, where it is taking place for all the money related stuff. So they are giving me tokens against that money, whatever they are putting in their bank. And most important, when donor is donating the 5,000 rupees, that rupees is getting added in the bank. It is not getting added directly in some individual account. So that's how in India, we have RBI, right? Central governance body that will take care where the transaction is going and does it any malicious transaction or not, right? So that's how that bank will issue us a token for time being. Whenever we want to withdraw that money, you can show that tokens and withdraw that money. That's how the token will come into the picture. So each fund will say how many token is nothing but the amount collected against the rupees. Perfect, against the dollar, rupees, whatever it is, but amount collected against the money, that will be taken as a total tokens. Okay, now donations. Now I want to track for each donation how many tokens I have collected. I want to give here entry when donor is donating something. I want to know which donor has donated into that fund. For that, donor metadata will come into this donation part, and expenses like this is like inflow, coming money in my fund, and this is outflow, going money from my fund. Expenses is like let's say in previous videos also I have explored the my future use case could be I want to add multiple vendors and multiple peoples who want who will provide some groceries or some inventories or whatever it is to my fund of to the NGOs. So they want to buy something, they want to buy books, they want to buy water bottle, they want to buy some plants or whatever it is, right? So the money which is going from my fund, so they will not send money directly from my fund, they will send the tokens. So that token will get deducted from this total tokens, and then it get added one entry with which on which vendor I have sent how many tokens, and then vendor can claim that money in the bank directly. That is how I have defined it. Sounds good. So this is how we'll tracking the incoming money flow and outgoing token flow here. Yeah. And of course, the timestamp created at the fund, and the status it is active or inactive. By default it's treating it as active, but we can set it as inactive when the fund we have fund created, and we'll close that fund also, right? Once we reach our target, we want to close that fund, so that will change the status to inactive. By default we are keeping it as active, but we can keep it as inactive as well, and we can add a one extra layer of functionality, one privileged, or we can say the one flexibility to my fund creator to keep that fund created by default. If you want to do some modification, modify it, and then later you can mark it as active. But for me, I'm creating directly it as active, but it's up to you guys. You can feel free to update the logic. I hope you got this logic. And then now, uh, here what we can do, mm, let's go, this is something, let's, when we have the object ready, simply you can put, this is adding that object in my ledger, put state. Perfect. Now next function is like when I have added the token, wait, we are in the funds, we have created the funds. Now we'll create a donation part where I'm explaining you we have to add the incoming flow. So let's say the donor part will put into here itself. So donation can be done by anyone, so we are not adding here this required MSP level authentication. Here anyone can donate it, just we have to remember who is calling call. There is some flow which I have defined already for steps to donate. So first user will click on donate button, then call issue token function by org to MSP, and then transfer token by org to, and then call donate organization. Okay, so this is how the flow will work. Donate function will not get triggered directly because we are talking about tokens, and token will come from, we have not created token yet, so that will come inside my wait. So there is some mismatch. Guys, this is not a token smart contract. Whatever I have written, the logic, it is related to the fund. So let me just rectify it. Let's do one thing. Let's copy, paste, Control A, Control C, go to the funds, and then Control A, Control V, and just change this token contract to the fund contract. So actually, this is the fund contract logic. My bad. I want to create the fund over here. Let's export the fund only. This is nothing is there. Token contract we'll see. We'll say token contract. Token contract operation is based on bank, and this fund contract operation is based on NGO. Cool. Now, yes, now it's look good. Now I don't have token ID, that I will get in my token contract. So here first, what we'll get, fund ID. Now we have created the fund, so they'll based on this ID. You might have seen why I'm taking fund ID in the function. So it's optional, guys. I want to take it directly from the front end side. I want to make sure that this can be attached on my central backend sort of thing for remembering the references. That again, authentication layer, or we can say cache layer, can be added later. So we cannot put everything in the backend. That's we have to everything in the blockchain. We always need a references. For that, I'll create it in my from backend layer, put it in my central DB, and then I'll add that value in my decentralized DB as a blockchain one. Okay. Now, so for donate, what we are creating, again creating the ID and then checking if that entry is already there. If not, then we are creating over here one entry. First, most important, based on the fund ID, we are fetching the fund. So we are fetching this record, what we created over here, right? We'll get this record, we'll get the donation array as well. Then what we'll do, we'll get the donation. We have created here one donation object, donor ID, token ID, and then CID, and the amount. Amount is nothing but the number of tokens. Okay. Now here is CID. So in one previous video, I have explained about generating that batch as well against the onboarding flow for each bankers, for each NGO, and for each what do we have, donors, right? And then when they are donating, we'll issue one more batch against their each donation, how much they have donated, to keep as a reference or as a invoice or as a receipt sort of thing, anything, or as a appreciation sort of thing to validate that user. You have donated some amount and that is a CID. This is the reference of my IPFS. That's why I have kit. You can rename it with respect to your batch URL or whatever you want to do. But I'm treating it as a CID. So that data will go and stored in my IPFS. So IPFS in the sense in my Node SDK level, I'll generate the batch once the transaction is completed, when the transaction is hit, and then I'll add that CID over here inside the uh, inside this particular token. So here first what we are doing, we are calculating the total fund, we are updating the fund amounts as well, the previous fund amount, and then we are adding the new amount. So to make sure that we are always keeping my total count up to date on each donation with respect to the fund what we have created. And then later we are pushing, because it's an array, right? So we are pushing this object in my donation array, right? So what we can see over here, we have to push it over here. So that's what I did. And then after that, I'm just updating that state, right? So now I have to update my record. So I have update my put state based on the same ID. So my record will get updated. Cool. So that's what we are doing. So it get updated in the sense it will create a new entry for that. So we can later check the transaction history for that fund as well. Like how many transaction will get added over there in the fund. Perfect. That's what we did. Now we can check for the add expenses. Similarly, we have saw the donation part. We can add the similar experience for my add expenses. So complete same. Just the call will vary from the, instead of donor calling that function, my NGO will call that function, because add expenses like something which I'm spending money from my wallet, right? It's something like that. So NGO users can only spend that money. So I have added here spender ID. So we can give like fund ID, on which fund you are spending, the description and the amount you want to spend, and the spender ID. Spender ID could be equivalent to my vendor ID or something like that. Similarly, we'll fetch the fund based on fund ID. If it's there, we'll say fund is there. If not, fund not found. And then create the expense object, description, amount, keep your amount up to date, whatever you want to spend, and then spender ID timestamp. Will now, previously in donation we added, so similarly will minus that. Instead of adding, we'll minus that because we are spending the money, and then we'll push the my expense how can I say, array over there. Cool. Similarly, update that. Pretty simple logic. Now, uh, we can have here functions to get fund based on ID. So simple function. So we can call here get fund. Just pass the fund ID, and this can be called by anyone because fund is something a public one. But remember here one thing. Uh, Maybe this could be use case I don't want to show as a NGO. Don't give consent to show all the expenses at uh, how many expenses they have tracking for the donor side, or maybe that privilege can be happened, or maybe there is another sensitive data with respect to transaction which NGO owner or fund creator don't want to expose. So we can add that trimming on the object level, what objects you want to expose and what attributes you don't want to expose within that complete this fund complete fund attributes that could be taken care at this get function level whenever you are showing that data in string directly. Now here I have assumed I want to show everything, I want to give full transparency, but based on use case, based in your use case, you can do that variation anytime. That's not a hustle, right? That's not a challenge either. Now most important function will look now we have created fund, we talked about adding expenses, adding the donation there. Now let's see this case where I want to I have already reached my what's it, the target, and I want to close my fund. So where my close fund function will come into the picture. So who can close the function? So I have given here privilege for org2 and org3. So org2 and org3 is like my my government organization and my NGO organization. Anyone can close the fund. If sometime this can happen for the governance purpose, NGO has created fund, but they are still in active state, even though they have reached their target, right? Or we can add here automatic logic. Once you reach the target, you can close it automatically, right? So when you are giving any donation, right? So in donation itself, we can add that logic actually to close that fund. But I have given this as a separate function, but you can add anytime. So that's how creating as a separate function to close that status explicitly. Just what you need to do, fetch the record and just update the value of that fund dot status to close, and closed at timestamp will be get added, and then simply put that state. So again, new entry get recorded, new entry get generated in my smart contract, and I have given the privilege for both the users. My admin user, admin MSP, as well as my NGO MSP can close the funds. Okay. This can be happen directly at a time of donation. Each time when you are donating the money from the user side, once the donation reach that limit, they can automatically, each time they will checking the target. If it is matching to the target, yes. If it's not matching, then close it. Or if they want to close it explicitly, then they can call that close fund explicitly function over there, right? So they feel like this is not needed anymore, something like that. Cool. Now we will more look into the get functions, where we can get all the funds created by that specific NGO. So we can have here one function. So we can call this function called get all fund by NGO. Just simply have to pass NGO ID. And then again, this is a similar function we have already saw when we are trying to fetch all the banks or NGOs. So first we have to give here get state by range function will do. We'll call the iterator. Each time we'll calling that function based on record.ngo ID, right? So we'll see the NGO who is created that. What is the NGO ID? Sorry, what is the record ID? Based on record ID, we are fetching that. Oh, wait. This is the NGO ID. What we are doing, we are just taking value string. Okay. String value, if it's written, okay. Return just parse. If record NGO ID is equal to NGO ID, check simple identify fund rated and return all. Okay. So when we are creating fund, when we are creating fund, we have here fund dot ngo id, right? So record dot ngo id is the value inside my record. Okay, so against that I'm comparing it. So record dot fund id, because I'm giving this record as whatever I'm fetching from the ledger, right? From the each iteration we are treating it as a record. So record dot ngo, we are matching that ngo id, and however whatever the entries I'll get, I'll just put it into the my array, and I'll just return that array over here. Okay, perfect. Just returning in the JSON stringified manner. Pretty cool. Similarly, now I can return, if I want to return all the funds. Now that was for this could be, we can add again one. I don't need to add any validation here, because this will be on my public website facing, where based on that NGO I want to show how many funds they have created, and just populate or publicize all the funds that will come into picture over there, right? So similarly here I'm just getting all the funds, get all funds. Now this is overall platform. Just I'm checking against the type of my fund, right? I'm checking against the type fund. Whoever has a type fund record, they'll get returned all the funds based on, let's say if I have 5 NGOs in my platform, and they have created uh, 2 each, so total 10 funds will get returned over here. Okay, so I'm not creating against NGO ID, against the type of funds. If they have created fund, it will return. So this is helpful for overall platform to check how many total funds we have, and then based on specific NGO, they can go inside and they can check it out, right? We can filter it out based on NGO ID over here. So that's the logic for adding this particular function, right? And this same function can be used from admin side as well, to check how many total funds got created on my portal side, something like that. And if I want to check, so that one very interesting function also I have created to check all the donations did by the donor. Okay, so based on donor ID, as in now I'm a donor as well, right? So this, of course, I need one API for my donor portal to give to track all the donations happen from the donor side. So that's how I created this donor function. So it might look lengthy, but it's simple. Similarly, we're gonna do the iteration, but here what we do, inside fund type we have a donation array, right? So inside that donation array, we'll filter the record based on donation ID, right? If let me show you the donation object, you can see inside donation, each object, this is the array of object array, and then each object is there multiple, and inside each object we are storing the donor ID. You can see here donor ID. So I want to filter out my first all the funds, inside funds one donation, one fund. Inside one fund I have multiple objects, so funds and then how many donation I have did in that particular fund, that I will filter out over here. First I have filter out the type fund, and then if it is type fund, inside that fund I'm checking based on donor ID how many objects are there inside that specific fund. So that's I'll get the data, fund ID, NGO ID, and title and donations. Okay, so I'll create this thing, record fund ID on which fund, by for which NGO, and what is the title for that fund, and the donations, uh, whatever the donations I have did. So that I'll just simply grab it over here and put it in my array. Okay, so uh, that will give me the vast array, complete array for all the donations done from the donor side. Cool. So this is about our funds smart contract. I hope you enjoyed this. This is amazing one, right? Now quickly let's go and check our token smart contract as well. So now we have already defined here structure. So what we need to do, just remove this create and donor part. Now we'll look into our issuance part. I hope we are pretty clear with the fund smart contract, right? Pretty simple one. Now we're talking about issuing tokens, right? So this is a pretty small smart contract only. Here we'll look into the issuing tokens and remedying that particular token. Now first, let's check the issue token function, where I want to issue the token, yeah, and that will happen from the bank side. Okay, as I've already told, all the token side issuing and then giving fund against that token will be taken care by the bank. So that how we'll do. We'll create a org to MSP bank user, right? We'll take the metadata, bank ID or owner ID and account amount. Then we'll create here one object called token. First we'll define a token key based on token, starting with token, bank ID, then owner ID, and then it will give the token ID proper. We'll define a token key. So token ID is nothing but my token key, bank ID, owner ID, then amount. We'll see the status. Yes, it's issued at, and then creator MSP who created that particular token, and type as a token type. Okay, simple record type, simple, very simple. Most important is how many amount is there, what is the status of the token, and then simply just put that token in the state. Okay, similarly, one more function I need to transfer the ownership of that token. Okay, now you can see here is owner ID. Basically, if we are issuing that token, we'll keep that issue token is a separate function. So that function, at smart contract level, I have keep it as independent function. Let's say issue token, and then this is a transfer token as well. But on my application layer in my backend, when some donation is happening, so when donor will call, so this function will happen automatically inside my application one by one. Okay, so very first issue token, then transfer that token ID and to ID. So initially might be owner could be my bank, okay, because they generated that token, and then that token will get transferred to my donor, to my fund creator, right? The one who, so maybe initially the donor owner could be my uh, donor, because he created the fund. Now that donor is some initiating the transaction, he's putting the money. So the one who puts money in bank, they will act as a owner, and then we are transferring that token ownership to the my fund creator, because we are transferring, we are giving, we are donating that. So the owner is my fund creator who is fund created. So that transfer function will come into the picture, and that transfer function is also called by my bank user. So based on proper certificate, we'll transfer it, because we know that we have a limited users in bank. So we will previously, when we are calling that function in platform, we know that which bank we need to use, and then they only issue the token, and they will only going to transfer that token. Okay, so that's how we'll update these two entries. We'll update these two entries, token to ID, and then transferred status, transferred at. Okay, cool. So this is my transfer function. Now we'll look into the remit token. just when we have to redeem that particular token. So redeem is like when we are converting your token into the money, we are just burning that token and just, so it's simple. Again, this can be called by ngo user. As of now I have kept with respect to scope of this project as ngo user, but later you can increase this array. We can add org4 for vendors and role as comma giving multiple roles you can add as vendor roles or vendor user or vendor simply, whatever it is, right? So that could be possible here. And then we can give here status as redeem, simply redeemed by who is the redeemed or org id, ngo id, and then we can call it ngo user id or something like that, and simply just update the status. So this could be a in person, or we can say the bank also call this bank also can call this function when they are going in bank and when they are giving some money against some token. So they can also just call the redeem token, so that ledger entry will get updated over there, right? So we have to, again, there are some edge cases we need to consider for how it will work for bank, how it will work for vendors, and for ngos when they are taking care at different places, how they are doing online transaction, offline transaction, and all those, so on and so forth. But this is good for to start. This is good to start. Get all tokens by bank ID. Now here one more function is there. If I want to know, because there could be multiple banks as well, so I want to select the tokens which is available with respect to that bank ID, right? So I can just go do the query function and I'll get the result, a complete result of type based on type as a token and bank ID. So I'll get the all the records which is there for the bank ID. I don't know. It's, yeah, I think just I need one more. I missed this parenthesis. Okay. Yeah, so this is all about our get token by bank function. So now we are good with the smart contracts. We have done with our user smart contract, fund smart contract, and then token smart contract, right? All sorry, our all functions are completed now. Now we'll look into the running this smart contract and deploying the smart contract. Okay, thank you so much.